Hello and welcome to my review of the Tyranid Genestealers. One of these sets will cost you £18. You get 8 of them in the set. I've just created the 8 here that I got in the Tyranids new Start Collecting set. They are an old sprue, an old model now. Believe it or not, they are 13 years old, which is horrific. Such an old sprue, old model. The big gaps in the sprue, the mold lines are present everywhere, so they take the longest out of all the other models in the box. The Trigon is beautiful to make. The Broodlord is quite easy and quite quick to make, although it's limited in its poses. But these Genestealers, they are old, but you can equip them with a fair few options and really sort of customise them how you wish. Like I say, you can get them in the Start Collecting set for £50, so £18. You're basically paying £32, which is £4 less than a Trigon to get the Trigon in the set and the Broodlord. So if you're only after the Trigon and 8 Genestealers, then you've already saved yourself £4. The fact that you get a Broodlord as well is brilliant because they're pretty much like a big Genestealer really. Really nice HQ choice. Got 2 of them there. That's the one from the set. Here are the 8 that I got in the set. I've equipped them with rending claws, but you can, like the ones in the back, equip them with scything talons, so it's up to you. They're all going to have these little funny sort of jazz hand things with the long 4 fingers and a clawed sort of thumb, but yeah, you can equip them with the talons or the claws. It's up to you. I think I had a question on another video on the unboxing about what you should buy if you've got certain models and things like that. Well, one thing I will say is if you buy all the models in the Start Collecting set, I'll probably say this again in the review of that set, I've checked all the rules and things in the instruction book, and they're all exactly the same as in the main codex, unlike the Eldar one, where there was a couple of discrepancies. But the one thing it doesn't really obviously explain is instinctive behaviour, because that's like an army specific rule, and it doesn't explain synapse and shadow in the warp. So you're good with all the models and the rules in the box. Unless you search the internet or borrow a codex, you're not really going to know those 3 abilities. So I thought I'd just make that point. I'll say that in the box set. But anyway, these Genestealers, even though they're 13 years old, they're still alright looking models, I suppose. They're still pretty scary looking, pretty mean, got these long talons. It would be nice if Games Workshop did refresh them. There's 8 in the set. I think it would be better if there were 10, mainly because one of their abilities is Flurry of Claws, which means Genestealers will have 4 attacks instead of 3 if the unit has 10 or more models. So I'd like Games Workshop to do a set of maybe 3 sprues. They might be able to fit 10 on 2 sprues, who knows, but they've got the small bases and things, but do 2 sprues of 10 for 20 quid or 25 quid maybe, with those options, and then you can make use of that rule, because unfortunately they've written the rules and you need 10 or more to get those 4 attacks, and 4 attacks with Scything Talons or rending claws would be immense. Anyway, I'm babbling on about the rules already. Back to the models. Now, you'll probably have noticed that I've put like a cityscape. I'm going to be painting mine in sort of this colour. I've painted one already. It's going to have a snowy base. I think it works quite well. I need to brush up on my sort of armour plates and get them looking a bit better, but that's my little work in progress. I've done the eye and I've made the tongue look wet. Obviously you're going to have a wet tongue, and that's what this kind of look I'm going for, kind of a blue and purple ice world kind of thing. But for these bases, I've taken the city bases from a box of bases that I bought a while ago, and they're all from Games Workshop, and I've just stuck them on it. Now, it's up to you if you want to do that, because typically the Genestealers have this sort of bar of plastic with something else attached, and you just put them in these small 25mm slot bases. But what I did is I just cut off that bar of plastic and the little extra bit, and just carefully kind of glued them 1 foot on the base, and it's sort of worked out quite well. Bit fiddly because you're reducing the surface area of which the model can attach to the base, so you might need to spend a bit more time sort of basing them. That being said, I think it's worked quite well. We'll just have a look at the models. They do have a nice, a fair bit of detail and things. and you can put them in some nice poses. The legs, unfortunately, are going to look exactly the same, but because there's so many of them, you can't really sort of tell. You can't really, and because they're arms, it's all about their arms and their limbs. You know, the legs, you're not really going to notice. They're all in quite an action pose anyway. The heads you might start to notice. I mean, especially like these two. Look at those, exactly the same heads. So yeah, in a new set, I'd like to see some more variation in heads and things. But yeah, you can pose these arms in whichever way you want. Look, you can have them both up. You can have, look, like that one with one arm out, about to leap. I mean, you know, at least the arms are a decent part of the model that you can sort of pose and get some decent poses out of. But yeah, it's sort of let down by the heads and the legs, really, if anything. So what I'll do now is I'll just go through some size comparisons. So I have a Broodlord here, which is probably like a big Genestealer, if you will. I mean, it's got the same sort of rending claws on the front, and it has 4 limbs. It's just a bigger sort of version, I think, of a Genestealer. And it just goes to show you how much they've come on in those years, the models. So there you go, a bit of a size comparison there with a Broodlord. With a Warrior, they're smaller than Warriors, as you can see, a fair bit. I mean, the Warriors use I think they're the 50mm bases actually. So as troops, they're quite small troops really. Obviously not as small as Termagants, but yeah, compared to a Warrior, which has I think they have 3 wounds each, and they are pretty small troop choices. And then compare them to like a Carnifex, and then they're sort of kind of dwarfed by a Carnifex. That's quite a medium-sized-ish creature. So there you go. And then finally with a Space Marine, and it's probably one of the best sort of size comparisons I can do with a Space Marine. They've just got more sort of area mass to them than a Space Marine. You know, their spine and their carapace and all the rest of it. But yeah, height-wise, Space Marines are a bit taller. I mean, yeah, Terminators would dwarf them even still. Hope that helps. If you want me to do Primaris size comparisons in the future with all the models, please do put it in the comments below if you find that helpful. But I just understand that Space Marines are still the most abundant miniature, so that's why I'm doing those. And so this is the part of the review where I'll go into all of the rules. Like I mentioned before, in the Start Collecting instruction book, all of the rules are valid, they're all correct and things, so you can still use them out of the box. Genestealers in the new codex are troop choice. They have a power level of 4 and it contains 5 of them. So normal sort of unit is 5. So again, it's odd that you still get the 8 in the set. Just move them there. So that would be your typical unit for your 4 power points. And Genestealers, they are 10 points per model. So that would be 50 points there. Or if you want to have the 8, that'll be 80 points, of course. Your rending claws are 2 points, so that's going to be another 16 points. So that's going to be 96 points for the 8 there. If you go for the Scything Talons, they're free. They don't cost any points. So all the ones at the back there, I think there are 10. That would be your 100 points, and that's it. Oh well, he's got rending claws, and so has he. I think those two were from not the Assassin box, but there's a set I had with just a couple of Genestealers in. I think it was the Genestealer cult set with this chap here, this Patriarch. Really nice sort of looking Broodlord, if you wanted to use him as a Broodlord. Now let's go through the stat line of them. So their movement is 8 inches, so it's pretty fast. Their weapon skill is 3+, that's great. Ballistic skill is 4+, you don't really need that anyway, other than for the flesh hooks. The strength is 4, toughness 4, they've got 1 wound, they've got 3 attacks though. Leadership is good at 9, and the save is 5+, so that's not so good. The unit contains 5, and it can include an additional 5, up to 10 additional ones, and up to 15. So you can have 20 in your unit. For every 4 models in the unit, 1 model can have flesh hooks or 1 model can have an acid maw. Any model can also have a pair of Scything Talons, and all models in the unit may have toxin sacks and or extended carapaces. So let's go through the weapons. Now the flesh hooks, a range 6 inch, assault 2, strength user, damage 1, weapon can be fired within 1 inch of an enemy unit and can target enemy units within 1 inch of friendly units. That's all right. 2 shots gives it a little bit of range, but you're going to be ploughing them in close combat anyway. Acid Maw, that's a melee weapon, but it's AP -3, so that's pretty cool. The Rending Claws, AP -1, and each time you make a wound of a 6+ for the weapon, that hit is resolved with an AP of -4. So that's incredible. AP -4. That's going to be really good against your normal Space Marines and your Terminators, obviously. Scything Talons, you can just re-roll hits for the weapon. So the abilities, they've got quite a good selection of abilities here. So the Flurry of Claws, which I mentioned earlier, Genestealers will get 4 attacks instead of 3, whilst the unit has 10 or more models. That's horrific. So you've got 20 of them. Say they all survive. You've then got 80 attacks, which is insane. 80 attacks from 20 of these guys ploughing in. Lightning Reflexes, they have a 5+ invulnerable save. So although the 5+ on face value a bit poor, they do have an invulnerable save. Swift and Deadly, Genestealers can charge even if they advance during their turn. That's awesome. If you choose them to have the extended carapaces, it will increase their save characteristic of 4+, but they lose the Swift and Deadly. So I don't know if I'd do that, because I think Swift and Deadly is incredible. But if you want them to get a better save than a 5+, then it might be worth going for that. Although extended carapaces is 2 points, so you got 20 of them. That's another 40 points there just for extended carapaces. And then finally, Infestation. So the little nodules, the infestation nodes that you get in the set, I think you get about 4, I want to say. If your army includes units of Genestealers, you basically place 4 infestation nodes anywhere in your deployment zone where your army deploys. Then you can set up the Genestealers as lurking instead of actually setting them up on the battlefield. And if an enemy model is within 9 inches of an infestation node, it's destroyed. 9 inches, that's quite a distance actually, but if they just get within that 9 inches of them, it's just destroyed. Whilst there are any friendly infestation nodes on the battlefield, the unit can stop lurking, and at the end of the movement phase, you can set them up wholly within 6 inches of a friendly infestation node, and then that node is removed from the battlefield. If the unit is still lurking, when the last friendly infestation node is removed, the unit is destroyed. So that's pretty decent. It depends what sort of game you're going for. You can play a defensive game with Tyranids, or a counter-attack game with Tyranids really. So you have those 4 nodes in your deployment zone, you set them up at places where you think your enemy will deep strike or flank or whatever. Or there's a high value target like an Exocrine or some Hive Guard that have the shock cannons, I think they are. You set these infestation nodes up around there, and if they're about to get flanked or deep striked or assaulted, you can just pop these Genestealers out, and hey presto, you've got 80 rending attacks. You know, at AP -4. So it's great that they can be used that way. Also, they can be used quite offensively. What I mean by that is, if you use them in conjunction with a Trigon or a Trigon Prime, they can just burst out with the Trigon and have at it, let rip basically. The good news is that they don't have instinctive behaviour, and they don't have synapse either. They're not affected by these things. The hive mind basically wants to let them run free and affect the planet's populace over time, and that's where you get the arrival of sort of Genestealer cults, where Tyranid's sort of psychic presence has started to alter a populace of a planet, and then eventually they give birth to a Genestealer Prime, you know. So they're pretty horrific creatures in their own right. They're not sort of, you know, they don't lay eggs or facehuggers or anything like that. They're sort of psychic will. They're not bound by instinctive behaviour, and they also don't have the synapse. They're sort of a will unto their own, basically. And one little Genestealer is enough to cause havoc on any world, according to the fluff. That is the end of my review. That's everything I wanted to say about the Genestealers. Unfortunately, yeah, they are a 13-year-old model, and the backstory to them and the way they work in game, they just deserve a newer, updated model. I can think of other models that have had more iterations than Genestealers, but in a lot of ways, like the Carnifex, they really are the poster child of Tyranids. You know, when I think of Tyranids, I do think of Carnifexes and Genestealers pretty much first. And it's nice that Games Workshop did actually bring out a Broodlord model with them, which is you know, more detailed sort of better model just to lead them. So you can have a force of Genestealers with one of these leading them if you wish. Anyway, what do you guys think? It'd be great to hear your thoughts and opinions. Put it down in the comment section below. What was your favourite experience of Genestealers in a game? I'd really like to know. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. For the Norn Queen.